Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto with Hinata, female Haku, Tenten, and Fu unlocked his limitless potential in a harem destiny, part 2. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's start. Chapter 13. His eyes snapped open, only to close them again in a squint. Having to wake up only to have the sun glare him back in the face wasn't his thing. In fact, he tended to move mostly at night because he disliked the daytime. In this instance, however, he had decided to set up camp in the desert, and lay down in his pallet belly up. His joints made little popping noises as he stood up and roused himself out of his sleep-induced lethargy. Hey, guess I just had to sleep out in the open huh? What's the saying say? Where you make your bed is where you have to lie in it. What time is it? He said to himself. Not getting an answer, he got riled. What time is it? He shouted now to no one in particular. It's too early for this shit. A voice yelled from the inner reaches of his mind. No, you shut up. Another one shouted. Besides, it's 8 in the morning. We should have woken up 3 hours ago. You're all fools. All he asked was what time it was. There was no need for quarrel. Immediately, more voices chimed in with their opinions, only serving to cause a massive headache to the man who was rapidly losing his patience. All right, I heard an atom so that will do. The rest of you shut the hell up. The man was pissed. This was but only one of the reasons he'd become so indecisive of late. Oh, he hated having to house so many minds in his, a severe drawback in his jutsu. After getting the acquired taste of brains, that is. And there was the fact that he was always losing chakra with no way of getting it back except for cannibalizing the brains, then suffering with the drawbacks, then forced to eat more brains. It was a vicious cycle. You have to lose control of us eventually. Kami, this is what I've been reduced to. Kuso. A voice in someone's head. God damn you, you son of a. That's enough, Ito said sternly, you seem to forget who is in control. Immediately following, Ito mentally subjected the profane voice to something tortuous, and grinned sadistically when he heard it shrieking in pain. Now then, does anyone else have something to say? He was met with unadulterated silence, and he nodded to it, good. Now then, who are these fools coming? Shading his eyes with his hand, he looked out across the desert. It seemed that a group of ninja would soon pass through this location. It must have been Suna ninjas, after all, they were coming from the direction of Sunagaku. He drew on his robes quickly, pulled his hood over his head to cover up his sensitive skin. He didn't want his unique facial features getting out, his blemishes and scars. While doing so, he wondered about Gaara. He was after the Ikibi Jinchuriki to check up on whether the brat's inner Bijuu had passed on vestiges of its techniques in Gaara's mind. But for now, he supposed that he'd need to infiltrate the village first. Any of the approaching ninjas would be useful as a disguise, and it'd be a bonus if any of them had a Kekai Genkei. Oi, Hara. Move like you've got some life in you. You're lagging behind. Yes, senpai. Hara applied a little more chakra to his feet in an effort to keep up with the lead jonin of the squad as they did the border patrol. He was a late sleeper. He had barely woken up in time and readied himself to get to his mission briefing with the rest of the members of his squad. So it was no surprise to that his metabolism had not gotten up to speed yet. It could be said that his body still assumed it was still sleeping hours. Damn man, you're so slow. That's expected of a fresh chunin, but the exams are over man. Your orientation period's over, so quit acting like a genin. Shut your mouth, Kuzi. Hara retorted. You know that my bloodline limit to see in pitch black darkness was what helped us to pass. You would have still been wandering around in that damn mountain in Kuma without me. Just pick up the pace. 5 minutes later of ninja sprinting, they stumbled across a man covered from head to toe in a strange cloak complete with a face mask and hood covering the top of his head, shadowing his eyes. Everyone slid to a stop and entered their respected stance. Who are you and what are your reasons for being within our borders? Surin, one of the lead jonins asked. He was a very intimidating-looking character and he would not take foolishness or ignorance, especially from a man who looked like he was a potential threat to Suna. The man did not even have a Hittite, at least, not one that should have been easily visible. Name: I got a bunch of 'em, don't like 'em, either. Reason: I'm just passing through, collecting this and that, here and there, Ito replied. Do you stop to question everyone you see within a couple miles of Suna? I could be passing through just to sightsee. Could. So you had to visit the tropical paradise that is Suna? Surin retorted sarcastically. He was growing impatient with this man's inane answers. Even a spy would have given a fake name and purpose. But this man, what the hell was his deal? Kuzi, search him for identification, the jonin ordered. If he does not submit and becomes a threat, he will be treated as such. At the command, Kuzi stepped forward confidently. The group of 2 jonins and 3 chunins should be enough to intimidate the man into submission, their ranks easily understood by the color scheme and other such attributes of their vests. However, the more he walked towards the man, the more he felt a pressure. Not killing intent. It was as if gravity had singled him out for special treatment. 5 yards from the man and he could barely keep standing, let alone keep his head from rolling around on his neck muscles. The man was doing something subtle to let him know he did not want to be searched. Kuzi was already regretting leaving the village and encountering this person. What's wrong, Kuzi? Surin grumbled heatedly, seeing his subordinate stop and hesitate for a full minute. Finally having enough, Surin stomped up to Kuzi and savagely turned him around, only to discover a Senbon needle sticking out of his forehead. The man had died standing, quickly and eerily. He's been dead for half a minute. Hesitation can cost you your life. You either do or don't. Surin, finally snapping out of his stupor, leapt backwards to regroup at his squad's position. Attack, he yelled, meanwhile going through some hand seals to prepare a jutsu. Futon, Tenringu Fu no Jutsu. Wind release, tunneling wind technique. Surin quickly formed what looked like a spear of wind and threw it, aiming at the man's chest. The speed of the jutsu would ensure that there would be a gaping hole in his chest, as it usually did to the poor blokes that opposed the jonin's technique. The man merely turned sideways in a great show of speed and boredom, allowing the spear to fly past harmlessly. The man then formed a single snake hand seal and mumbled something. He reopened his hands to reveal a small red floating orb that grew in size, and soon washed over everyone in a glow of red light that soon disappeared. What was that supposed to do, huh? Intimidate us? Hara was not impressed with the jutsu. The cloaked man's attention immediately snapped to him. The chunin recoiled from the aura the man gave off. It wasn't killing intent, but something more primal, predatory, maybe. Before he could run, the mysterious stranger had flashed to him in a burst of speed with a tanto in hand, and slashed his head apart, brain matter and blood spilling. I must have gotten knocked out, but when I woke up, I found everyone with slit throats, signs of battle, and the man gone. Hara finished. This is indeed troubling. But you alone escaped with your life. The cage gave his ninja the stink eye, scrutinizing him. From your account, he seems powerful enough to not make any mistakes about leaving anyone alive. Perhaps he wanted a witness, someone to give a report. But that contradicts his behavior about being secretive. Hara looked on as the leader of Sunagakur mused out loud. No clue why I alone lived, Cage-sama, he commented dryly, just enough to let the man know that he could get the real flavor of what the man was thinking. The Sabaku grunted. Needless to say, he shall be added to the bingo book, although funds in the treasury are low. Damn it all. The mission will have to be drafted to a new team. We can't afford to lose any more face with our clients. You are excused, Hara-san. Gratefully, Hara left and closed the door behind him. Making his way home, he unlocked his apartment and sat on his bed, his form changing into that of the cloaked stranger from before. The man of mystery then closed his eyes and called out in his thoughts. Hello, Hara. Where am I? Hara's mentality cried out in the man's head. The locals in there tend to call it, hell. You're gonna stay there, I think your night vision is gonna come in useful. _Tenten. By Masato. Sayonara, Tenten-chan. Fighting her scrolls and packs a fair bit when they got in her way, Tenten checked her gear as she walked out the door. Weapon scrolls, check. Kunai holsters, check. Shuriken pack, check. Wait, it's starting to feel a little light. I might need to go check the hunting grounds if I can find any more lying around, she thought out loud. Tenten-chan, aren't you forgetting something? The man said as he waited with his arms outstretched a bit. Oh, I almost forgot. Tenten ran back to Masato and gave him a bone-crushing hug. I'm going to miss you, Tenten-chan. Gonna be boring for a while. Masato, it's only for a week, she grumbled dryly, so just imagine. A whole week without me having to bother you about when is mealtime. Uh-huh. The man stared at her, noting her slim figure. I remember when you practically ate the color off of the fridge, dear Cammy, I can only wonder where you're putting it all. His particular brand of wit sometimes made her want to put her hands around his neck and squeeze until he stopped moving. Oh, I'm gonna pretend I didn't just hear that. Do you know the time? About 1:15 midday. It's not lunchtime yet. She pretended that she didn't hear what he had said about it being lunchtime. Masato was just being Masato. Oh cripes, I'm late. I gotta get going. Don't wanna miss my mission meeting time. He didn't miss the actual lack of urgency in her voice or the fact that she always left an hour early, but he let her go. He didn't tell her goodbye, but instead allowed her to leave, his prayers following after her. She bounded away and started ninja sprinting. Now alone with her thoughts, she realized that she still hadn't called Masato, Tusan, yet. It had been 3 years in the orphanage. 3 years of crying herself to sleep, and now, she wanted to move on. While she was unsure that she would ever call him her father, he will hold the place of one, and when she returned from her mission, she was going to make sure he realized how much he meant to her. Not as the orphanage owner, but as the father figure in her life. But she wondered to herself. If she acknowledged Masato as her father figure, was she betraying her biological father, Kami bless his soul? And what of her mother? She missed her. But she was trying to move on, still trying to ward off the memories of their lives of family, back when life was good. Stop it. You are a kunoichi, damn it. Act like one. Kunoichi don't get emotional breakdowns. No, no, no. Don't start acting like an emotional bitch. Don't cry. But it was too late. Tears streamed down her face, no holds barred, induced by nightmares accompanied by years of life crises unresolved by therapy. She had been walking a precarious edge, but she had fallen into her whirlpool of memories in which there was no getting out. All she could do was let herself go, and hope that the whirlpool will dump her out at the earliest convenience. Against her will, she slowed down to a pained walk, unintentionally lengthening out her misery alone as she made her way to her team. As she did so, she passed by a blonde-headed youth who was going in the opposite direction, looking surly. When he saw her, he smiled at her like someone she used to know. She didn't take notice of him, and realizing this, he continued on his own way in silence, and she on her own. Are you alright, Tenten-san? Lee asked. He received no answer. Tenten, huh? The bun-haired girl looked up. Oh, I'm fine, Lee, she smiled, hoping to assure her teammate that she undeniably was. Lee was satisfied. Maida Guy was not. Guy could tell that she must have had an emotional breakdown again for the 3rd time in the space of 6 months. While it didn't affect her duties as the team's sole kunoichi, it would soon start taking a toll on her mental health, breaking it down like a fort under siege. She was probably in need professional help, or even needed to resign, especially that her acts as a kunoichi seemed to make each breakdown worse than the last. But if no one could help her professionally, then it could be possible for her to heal if she, by chance, had a kindred shoulder to cry on. However, Lee was out of the question. Bless his earnest nature, but the boy had zero intelligence about this sort of thing. Neji, perhaps. He looked over to the stoic Hyuga. He seemed to have a permanent glare and increasingly familiar scowl to go with it. He had seen family members die to other family members in his clan because of the caged bird seal he himself wore on his forehead, but no one too close, like his mother or father. He didn't have any sort of empathy to the girl who was orphaned. Besides, to get Neji to comfort Tenten, one probably had a better chance of seeing his eternal rival without his mask. Maybe he could find someone later when they returned to the village after they fulfilled their mission. With reluctance, he put Tenten's issues on the back burner. Now was a time to accomplish what their mission dictated. Neji, use your Byakugan to scout out the bandit camp. Tenten, prepare to give us long-ranged support. Lee, when Neji completes the tally, we are going to approach the west side through the forest canopy. Hi, sensei. They had all gone into professional mode. Lee started limbering up quietly while Neji counted the possible combatants, including the ones in the tents. Tenten, in the meantime, double-checked her weapons. All the kunai are loose in the holsters, scrolls easy to reach, the paper bombs, her eyes glazed over while she remembered that fateful night, the explosions and the fire and all the blood, the corpses it ran from. T.N.N. Tenten. Maida Guy hissed loudly, shaking her by her shoulders. Was her first intelligent response coming back to reality. You started staring into space, muttering something about fire and bombs and whatnot. You're remembering that night again, aren't you? He pressed. No sensei. I was, she trailed off. Remembering 3 years ago. Guy finished with a sigh. Tenten, it seems to me that you would rather remember that one night instead of the times before that, or even anything else after. All the happier times. But instead you choose to dwell on that one hellish point in time. But sensei. No buts, Tenten. He interrupted sternly. I mean what I say, exactly how I said it. I don't want to sound unsympathetic, but you need to move on and stop reminiscing about that unyouthful time. You need to be more emotionally stable because your psychological test is in a month that determines your future as a kunoichi. That is, if you remain one or not. It doesn't look good considering that you froze just by checking your equipment. What if you froze up while you were using it? You could get killed by an enemy just from a single mistake, not unlike that. I'm not telling you to kill your emotions, or to temporarily suppress them, only for you to keep them in check, at least while you're out in the field. I hope we never have to have conversation again. Is that clear? Guy stopped his lecture and looked over his jonin. It seems that she had listened, or disobeyed and temporarily suppressed her emotions. He reasoned. For the moment, there was no proof that she had recalled her painful past earlier. Her jaw was steeled and her brows were even. Her expression was as hard as granite. Hi. I won't let you down, Guy-sensei. That's impossible, Tenten. Guy replied. Neji, seeing that they were done, he tried to get Maida's attention. Guy-sensei. I have completed my count. Yes, Neji. How many have you counted? Guy asked. The head count is 36, Neji was grim. Not so bad. Roughly 9 opponents each. Guy reasoned after doing some math and battle scenarios in his head. For 40 people. Neji finished. What? Over there. Neji pointed. Guy looked to where his Hyuga Genin pointed. From what he could see bodies next to a table that was bloody to one side. He was furious. He could only presume that this was what the mission entailed. These bandits have been terrorizing a nearby town that the mayor-client ran. Apparently, these bandits must have been kidnapping people and decapitating them, sending threats that they wanted money or they wouldn't stop. Neji was grim. Lee was horrified. Guy was angry. But Tenten was disheveled. The temporary wall she had built around her emotions had crumbled, leaving her vulnerable once more. Guy calmed himself down as well as Lee. By the time he looked to Tenten, she had already put her emotionless mask back on. Very well. We will proceed as planned. However, Neji will flank around to the north, creating buncheons to intimidate them. Tenten will throw bomb tags from here into the southernmost of the camp to continue to drive them to the east against the cliff wall. Once they are there, we'll converge together and engage them while they are boxed in and confused. Is that clear? Guy stated, looking over all the members of his team, especially Tenten, looking her over for any sort of weakness. He was satisfied, seeing none. None that were obvious, that is. He was still worried though. Hi, Guy-sensei. Go. Guy started ninja sprinting with Lee and Neji, leaving Tenten alone with her thoughts. Does he expect me to just forget my parents and my childhood? My innocence. He doesn't know what I have been through, my own private hells. He never had to go through what I did when he was at my present age. To see parents and people who care for you die right in front of you, because of you. He doesn't know. Dynamic entry. No mistaking it. Only one person could shout those words from afar and make them carry like that. Well, time to get to work, she muttered. She walked up the tree to the top branch and hid in the thick foliage. From her elevated position she could see that Guy and Lee were kicking 2 bandits in the chest simultaneously to the right of her location. She looked straight ahead and could see Neji throw a couple kunai that took 2 bandits in the throat before creating a few more of the deceiving image buncheons that leapt out the tree line, further intimidating the criminals into retreating in the most logical direction, that being the southeast. Quickly, she took out 3 kunai with bomb tags attached and threw them right at the edges of the forest where she was, one in the south, one in the southeast and one to east-southeast, with the original explosion igniting the trees there. A few were caught in the blast, 2 died immediately and the last one crawled out of the fire sporting badly burnt flesh and a bloody stump for a right leg. The resulting fire drove the already panicking men to the east wall like lambs to the slaughter. Except for one. The bandit jumped over the fire neatly and grinned at the location where he knew her to be. He then turned his back and started walking off casually, a clear taunt meant for her to try and attack him while she was in his blind spot. Tenten gritted her teeth and looked to her teammates. By now, all the remaining bandits were penned in at the wall, putting up a fight, and Neji, Guy and Lee were trying to incapacitate them. She looked back to the man and then back to her team. It was a tough decision, but she made it nonetheless. She dropped out of the tree on slightly bent knees, landing with 3 kunai ready between her fingers. She threw them at the retreating figure of the man only for him to turn around at the last second, dodging the first 2 and catching the third at the grip and chucking it back at her even faster than she threw it. The kunai buried itself in a log she had been fortunate to substitute with in time. A substitution. Hey, you coward, come out here. I'll show you how a real ninja fights. The man shouted. "Tu-san is going to cut your pretty little head off." He then felt his waist, apparently searching for something. Damn, must have dropped it when the other ninjas started to assault the camp, he muttered under his breath before speaking up louder. Well, never mind that oversized butcher's knife. This one will do me just fine. He drew out a sturdy 6-inch knife with saw-blade-like properties to it. The zigzagged edges glinted dangerously in the sunlight. There was dried blood all over the hilt. He was met with silence as the kunoichi refused to answer with any sort of comment. From her unseen hiding place, the bun-haired girl studied her enemy for the first time. He seemed eccentric for lack of a better word, but not crazy funny like Guy and Lee, more like crazy sociopath. He had the skills of a low to mid chunin caliber, but he was dressed like a common bandit. Why was he with all those highwaymen? Look at all the dried blood on his shirt. She thought back to the bloody table she had seen from the start. It's him. It has to be him. He was the executioner. He's the one who decapitated those people. He must have tied their limbs to the corners with their heads off the edge to allow for him to easily chop their heads off. She was now frightened as she had realized the truth. This man dispatched so callously and mercilessly, and here he was threatening to do the same thing to her with a saw-toothed knife. That meant it wasn't going to be a clean stroke. No. He was going to drag it back and forth through her neck until her head only remained hanging by a piece of flesh, until it tore and her head fell off. No. Get it together, Tenten. I can't afford to panic and get sloppy. Think. He's a bloodthirsty bandit of chunin level, probably a nukenin with experience to boot. I can't take him on by myself, I'm just a genin. I need to somehow signal Guy-sensei to help. But how? Found you. The unsettling whisper said, his breath against the nape of her neck. Oh shit, she screamed breathlessly, before shouting in her mind. Quick, Kawarimi no jutsu. In a split second she was in the tree opposite of the clearing, seeing the man dig his knife viciously into a log she had substituted with. As she tried to slow her rapid breathing rate, she saw that the man again turned his gaze to her tree, as if he knew that she was there. Her thoughts raced almost as fast as her heart. Shit, is he a censor or something? She grabbed a weapon scroll and unsealed her remaining bomb tags, wrapped them up together in a wad and activated them discreetly. Well, here goes everything. If this doesn't kill him, at least it will get Guy-sensei's attention. She prepared herself for one more substitution and jumped out of the tree she was in. Out in the open, now. She shouted, trying to hide the frightened tone in her voice. The man dropped out of his tree and released his killer intent, further scaring the poor girl. Heh, the man chortled, you think you're brave. For all that, you have all the bravery of a mouse. I can practically smell your cowardice rolling off you. Come over here. I'll make your death quick. He said slyly. Almost immediately, her feet started walking towards the man as if in a trance. That's right. Keep coming. Don't stop. Tu-san's going to make the pain all go away, he said in a sympathetic-sounding voice. Why can't I stop? Somehow, a part of her knew this was wrong, that this man was about to be her killer. But another part of her believed him, wanting to believe that he could help her. No, what is this? Shit, genjutsu. But how do I break it when I can't even move my arms to create the ram seal? Wait, pain. She quickly bit her lower lip hard, drawing blood. Almost immediately, the belief that he cared for her was gone and her arms were back under her control. But why am I still walking towards him? She threw her weapons at him, kunai and shuriken. It didn't matter. He just danced around them. Her efforts to hurt him and hopefully break his control over her went for naught. Guy-sensei, anyone, help. Tears started to stream down her cheeks as she believed her time had come. She was convinced that she was now going to be with her dead parents. But she suddenly started thinking with stark clarity. But Masato is a two-san to me. And I have Asami and all my other siblings in the orphanage. Everyone there cares for me. One more face passed through her mind briefly. It had no details, except for whiskers on the cheeks. I'm not gonna go just yet. Not without a fight at least. She brought her hands together and formed the ram seal. Kai. She continued walking towards him. She gritted her teeth and almost slowed to a standstill her now dying chakra levels. She kept up the pressure on her network, sweating now in her effort and pain. It was like halting the blood in her veins. Suddenly, she released it, like an overflowing dam. Kai. She continued walking towards him. Ha ha ha. Do you think you can break my most powerful genjutsu with some mediocre release method? You're going to die here, little girl. Children shouldn't be running around playing ninja. This world is only for stone-cold killers. Not kids. He laughed hysterically. No one's coming for you, girly. Just come and take it like a real ninja would. You should have gone to some dumb civilian school instead. Being a ninja is not fun and games. He cackled as he spoke. He was content in letting her come to him. He enjoyed seeing her face go pale in terror. He was truly a psychotic individual. She balled her fists. She was now 10 yards from the man. What to do? Suddenly, she remembered her role of tags. Well, better him than her, or him and her instead of just her, she mused. But how much time left? Fuck, just throw it, Tenten. She balled it and threw it at him as hard as she could, but the paper held no real weight and it fell 3 feet shy of the man, ending the journey by rolling to his feet. His eyes widened in realization that they were explosive tags. Shit. Almost immediately, his hold over the girl's legs had dispersed, making the girl sigh in thankfulness before gathering her bearings. She quickly palmed her last kunai and threw it, aiming at his foot. In the man's panicked state, as he was pivoting on his leg to flee, the kunai caught him just above his heel, slicing his Achilles tendon, handicapping his movement. The girl, not sticking around to see if it caught him or not, had already started running away. She did not want to stick around to find out the blast radius for a dozen B-ranked explosive tags was. This act left the crippled man to stare wide-eyed at the tags, waited for the end to come knowing that he couldn't escape, suddenly saw a blinding flash of white. Then black. Tenten was still running when the explosion occurred and the blast caught up to her. It lifted her form and continued moving her beyond her control, finally driving her into the dirt head and shoulders first. Then she knew no more. Gah. She suddenly bawled in the night, springing up, only to see her comrades asleep. Except for Neji. He was sitting by the fire, poking at a straying piece of firewood. The dry wood fed the hungry flame and the wood crackled, sending sparks flying up and around him. But the branch Hyuga never once blinked in fear for his eyes, in spite of the event. Welcome back to the waking world, Tenten. She took note of her surroundings for the first time. Wah, night. Indeed. You have been unconscious for 9 hours. It's late at night and it's now my watch, the stoic boy replied to her unintelligent question. What happened? You were probably knocked unconscious by your explosives. From where we were fighting the bandits, we could see a massive explosion. This got Guy-sensei worried enough to open his first gate to finish off the bandits. To me, it seems there were a few chunin in the group. When we were done fighting, we rushed to check on you, only to find pieces of what appeared to be a man. He snorted. Or what used to be one. But you, however, we found you lying face down on the ground. 3 feet next to you was a rather sturdy tree. If you were knocked into that tree, you would have broken your neck and cracked your skull open. A concussion at the very least. Needless to say, Guy-sensei was very upset. Would you care to explain what transpired? He inquired. She told him everything that mattered. From when she saw him up until the explosion. But she was careful not to mention her emotional state during her encounter, or her thoughts. And that's what happened. Interesting. The one bandit we interrogated described that man as the person who chopped of those people's heads. We saw the weapon used. It was a single zigzag-edged blade that was 4 inches wide and 18 inches long. A rather brutish and barbaric weapon, you might have taken the strongest ninja in the bunch, or the least sane. Little difference it seems, nowadays. Well, he stood up and stretched. It's time for Lee's shift. Would you wake him while I retire? Neji requested. Sure, Neji. Good night. She went and did as he requested while he crawled into his sleeping bag. Good night, Tenten. She turned around to look back at him, but he had already turned his back to her. She returned to her task, but Lee wouldn't budge. Well, guess I'll do it. I'm fully rested anyway. And so she did. X equals X equals. The bun-haired girl sighed as she stepped inside her home. Orphanage. Misato. I'm home. The children's home was empty. She bounded up the stairs to her room and put down her things. Misato. She called again. Tenten-chan. The voice sounded faint. We're in the backyard. She ran downstairs and out the back door. Sure enough, she saw everyone there. All the children were eating what appeared to be takeout ramen, and Misato was speaking the Hokage. Asami approached her with another takeout bowl and gave it to her. Here, Tenten-ni-chan. Someone sent all of us ramen. Here's yours. Ramen. Hi. We all found these drawings under the container. Look. He lifted his now empty bowl and showed her the bottom. There was a piece of paper taped to it, a picture of some sort. She felt under her own bowl and found another similar to his. She placed the picture in her pocket, intending to look it over later. So, how did it go? What? The mission. It was okay. You know, same old, same old. Huh, you say that all the time. Come on. Nothing. Tenten fell defeated to the badgering. Fine. We went up against some bandits and I killed the worst one. This guy was really hardcore and he liked to decapitate people. Her surrogate brother tasted a bit of bile that rose to the back of his throat. That's awful. I'm sorry I asked. He almost killed me. Twice. But, she smiled. I guess I'm just awesome. Asami elbowed her in her ribs. Glad you're home safe, sis. I guess I'm really not cut out to be a ninja. Stomach's too weak. But I got a great sister who is one. Thanks, Ototo. She looked down at the noodles in the broth. Wonder who sent it. Who knows? A man answered unexpectedly from behind her, startling her. Misato. The orphanage owner had somehow crept up behind her and surprised her. That was, somewhat impressive. For a civilian. Suspicious even, but she ignored it. The brown-eyed girl looked around but couldn't see the Sandame. Where's the Hokage? Misato stroked his chin. He left while you were talking with Asami. What did he want? Asami queried. Oh, he was just talking business. Apparently, he's going to fund for some repairs around the orphanage. About time anyway. That's great news. But was he the one who sent the ramen? It tastes great, but I don't think the Sandame can cook. The boy joked. They chuckled. True. While I know who sent it, I'm not going to tell you. But if you really want to know, look at the picture carefully and try to think who you've seen with a face like that. The orphanage owner said conspirationally. Tenten, who had started eating, nodded. Might as well. Ramen's good though. Who made it? It was made by Ichiraku's. Apparently, our mystery person sponsored ramen for all of you. While it's cheap, you should appreciate the gesture. Really? Why is that? Asami raised an eyebrow. Because, a storm cloud spawned over Misato. I didn't get any. The children laughed. For a moment, the girl thought of how much the man looked like someone she used to know. Someone she liked, loved, maybe. I guess so, too-san. Tenten said. Misato perked up, both in mood and surprise, or was it shock and horror? Too-san. Tenten nodded. Yeah. Misato looked at the brown-haired girl. Moved on. Chapter 14. The sun finally broke over the horizon, rousing all the creatures that had yet to awaken. It cast its glow over the training ground, causing the trees to cast long shadows. In one such shadow, there a blonde sat cross-legged, eating an apple. He appeared to be deep in thought, a fact that was growing more in occurrence nowadays. He was, in fact, speaking to his tenant, the nine-tailed chakra monster sealed inside of him. That's true. But I was going to leave that jutsu to a Kaden clone when I got to it. What's next? What about those gravity seals? Okay. I remember reading that the seal was labeled a kinjutsu, due to being a double-edged sword. It brings gifts in one hand, and stabs you in the back with the other hand, that kind of deal. How come? It can't be much different than the regular training weights. Kurama asked. Simple. The boy thought his reply. Gravity seals, as mentioned by their name, affect the force of gravity on you. Not necessarily make you heavy by forcing you to the ground. It's like it makes you into a core of sorts. Remember when I visited Nami no Kuni? Wave. Hi. You nearly drowned and that man saved you. What was his name? Kaiza. Yes. But we digress. Get to the point. The seals are supposed to work like that. Like the sea, in a sense. For a human being, gravity is increased on your person only when using the seal. Imagine a stone at the bottom of the sea. The water pressure would be constantly pressing down on it, keeping it down, as well as around it. For a human being, while everyone is moving normally, it will be like you're moving through syrup. This exercise forces you to put more effort into something as trivial as walking. Your whole body extremely heavy, your muscle density would increase with your exertions as well as your speed. It's like being chained to a boulder until you're able to run with it. Naruto smirked. And when you're unshackled, your running speed with the burden plus your natural speed without it equals, Kurama grinned. Speed demon. This is all well and good, but how is this supposed to backfire? How is this supposed to be harmful when it looks like a great way to train? The Kyuubi was locked in thought. It would have been an improvement for that so-called ninja academy. All they're really doing is teaching civilians how to throw kunai and shuriken, and that was for the faster kids. The slower kids, that is, you, didn't learn shit. Naruto didn't respond right away, unable to think of any comebacks before realizing that the poor taunt just wasn't worth it. This seal is a kinjutsu for a reason. Why can't a fish live on dry land or a man in the sea? Enlighten me. They would be out of their element. Essentially, it all boils down to gravity seal's curse. Once you release the seal's effects and return to normal, your muscles and your breakdown from overexertion when you move faster than what your body became used to. After that, you'd have to get used to normal life unshackled all over again, but if you don't train again with the weights, you'll basically get out of shape. But for us, I think we're an exception. Kurama tried to think about what the blonde meant. Why were they exceptions to such a rule? It's not as if his chakra could be used as a buffer or shield in a case like this. He asked his container to explain. Think. The only exception is due to the fact of people with medical potential healing such injuries. Or deal with it over time, tearing muscles and damaging bones and repairing them to be more dense and such for future uses. I see. The fox now realized what his container was driving at. My chakra will be constantly healing and regenerating torn muscles, fractured bones, damaged tissue, and ligaments. That's it. Naruto stood and stretched. That's going to have to wait though. I have to get my hands on some sealing ink and the rest of that junk before I can start, and I'd have to touch up my calligraphy or something before even that happens. Maybe that's how I'd contribute to the team I'm gonna make. By using seals. Or maybe something else, I'm still not too sure. True. What's next? I got every technique from the scroll memorized. I know their instructions, strengths, and weaknesses from their descriptions, right down to A, T. I might not know how to do them, so I'll have to leave that to the future clones I'll create, the ones that will have their abilities lean towards those affinities. Naruto started to run towards the village border to start doing his laps. The tenacious 13, huh? I wouldn't have to resort to literally making a team if my teacher didn't think that I'm some kind of a time bomb. He sighed. The Yuhi woman had responded to the apology in an unforeseen manner. She had ended up scrutinizing everything he did for a full week now, and he had a feeling it was just the beginning. The old man must have put her up to it, or more than likely, she didn't believe in the apology. Figures. He actually apologized for his tenant and suddenly, he's high risk. The woman even tried to train him separately from Hinata and Shino, using some half-baked lie that they needed the most work. As if she could have made it a bit more believable. If she had split them all up and used clones, it would have been more sincere sounding. In a short hour later he had finished all his laps and went back home to have his breakfast. As he ate, he looked around his dilapidated apartment he called home and frowned. A sudden movement caught his eye. He noticed a rat darting from his pantry with a bit of food in its mouth towards another hole. When the rat disappeared inside, he heard more squeaking. Probably raising a family in there, he thought with a resigned sigh. He'd been doing a lot of that nowadays. Guess they made my home little more than a prison. Maybe I really should have joined the orphanage after all. But the minute I leave there in the morning, I would probably come back to see it burn to the ground. He bemoaned aloud. Oh Kami, not again. Get a rat trap and just shut the fu, Kurama started. I'm fine, really, Naruto protested weakly. I was only joking. I can tell you're in denial. I can hear your thoughts, you know. Fuck, just stop bitching about it. I'm tired of always having to hear the same spiel day in and day out. I said that I'm joking. More like a pathetic tragedy than a comedy, so just save it for someone with a twisted sense of humor and move on. Got it. Yeah. X equals X equals. And that's the 5th D rank mission for Team 8. A decent start, but Team 7 has already done 9, Haruka remarked in a mild boast. You want to lose to Kiba and Sasuke, Naruto. Haruka and the Hokage sat next to each other. By all appearances, it would seem that Haruka was extremely attached to the latest generation of shinobi hopefuls this year, and had applied for a temporary position as the Hokage's assistant, helping with handing out missions as well as general paperwork. The aged Kage welcomed Haruka for the company as well as the respite from his document worries. You have to make it sound as if you care. Act, stupid. Damn. What? Kurenai-sensei, we gotta do some more missions, we can't let those hacks win. Haruka-sensei, can we do 2 or 3 at a time? Naruto tried to use puppy eyes, but it pulled off none too well, seeing as he was too old for it. Essentially, he was acting like traditional Naruto. No, Naruto, Haruka deadpanned, looking at the Jinchuriki as if he had lost his mind. Only 1 at a time. Do you think we're making them think they're overreacting about suspecting me of anything? The whiskered boy thought to his tenant. No, we're only fooling Hinata and Haruka for sure. Shino is a maybe. Kurenai and the Sandame, not a chance. They weren't born yesterday. In other words, I lose face and dignity and it didn't even matter. Naruto exploded mentally. Well, we'll just have to deal with it and be more careful about what we do or say in the future. Keep it casual and easy, the fox replied. The Hokage spoke up. Genin can perform D ranks in their own time though. You don't have to necessarily do them with your team. Some genins do this as a means to earn a little extra cash sometimes. He had fully expected Naruto to grimace but had instead adopted a thoughtful expression. Maybe the thought of money had gotten to him. This was made true based on what Naruto said next. Could I get a couple of D ranks when I come by later? What? I mean what I said, Haruka-sensei. Anyway, can we just go catch Tora the cat now? I'm sure that's what you had in mind anyway. Alright you 3, that wasn't so bad but it could have gone better if we had more decent teamwork, Kurenai explained, so we will be trying to improve the team's synergy. Today, we'll be doing a bastardized version of the original Genin test. You will be trying to remove these bells, Kurenai pointed to the bells strapped to her waist. But keep in mind that I'm scoring your teamwork. In training, you have been kept separated from each other to help team cohesiveness on the fly. She concluded. What a load of bullshit. She's just saying that so my other teammates don't get suspicious to what she's been doing. Naruto snorted. Kurenai glared at the boy. And the Bunshin Daibakua has to be limited to a smaller scale to reduce collateral damage as well as improve safety odds for other team members. Everyone knew what she was talking about. Begin, the woman shouted. Naruto immediately spawned 2 clones and they dashed at the sides, trying to flank the jonin while Shino charged at the woman, insects starting to pour out of his sleeves. As expected, Hinata stayed behind, hesitating a little before activating her dojutsu and running at her sensei as well. Kurenai backpedaled a little, trying to keep the blonde and his doppelgangers within her field of vision. Shino reached her and started to fight her with taijutsu, his insects trying to swarm the woman but failing. This was quite a change from his somewhat pacifist nature in fighting, which rather consisted of keeping a healthy distance while allowing his parasitic insects to gorge themselves on the chakra of his opponents. However, Naruto and his clones passed when Shino occupied her. The spectacled boy threw a punch towards the woman's solar plexus which she caught in her left hand. The boy tried to corkscrew his hand out of the woman's grip, but she held fast and kicked away his legs before releasing him. What's the plan, boss? A clone thought to his creator. We're going to wing it. I'll approach her back while the rest of you flank her. We'll try to get into her blind spot. They contributed by throwing weapons at woman, hoping that they would stall her until Shino and Hinata occupied the jonin more successfully. Not as distractions. He himself wanted to see what they were capable of. Maybe he'd even get some sort of proof blackmail that he had a bitch of a teacher who showed too much favoritism. Shino's insect settled on the woman. She momentarily stopped before she exploded into smoke, revealing that she was a shadow clone. Naruto grinned wryly. Looks like someone took a page from my book. Hinata looked around with her Byakugan. She's in the forest to OORR right. She exclaimed. Naruto quickly created 8 more clones which leapt into the forest indicated while Shino recalled his insects and went into the opposite forest, no doubt to strategize. Hinata was left in the clearing alone with the original Naruto. Hinata-chan, I need you to come with me. What? The lavender-eyed girl blushed a little. I need you to be my eyes. She uses genjutsu, right? The Byakugan should be able to see through that. Naruto amended his implication. Oh. The girl pointed at a particular tree but she was suddenly assaulted from all sides by shuriken and kunai, transforming the girl into a corpse riddled by weapons in no time flat. What the hell? The boy stared at the dead girl. Wrong, this was way wrong. For one, this was a training exercise. Second, this girl was supposed to be the daughter of the Jonin's friend. Shit. Genjutsu. He formed the ram's seal, compressed his chakra and then released. Kai. His surroundings shimmered like heat waves in a distance before changing to that of an empty training ground. Fine. I'll work with this. No Kage Bunshin Daibakua. Just non-exploding clones. Iwa Bunshin no Jutsu. The boy formed a dozen rock clones and gave them a mental cue before they used Doten. Dochu Igyo no Jutsu, earth release, underground projection fish technique, and sank into the ground. He then created a single Kaden clone to back him up before he leapt into the tree line. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. What? Naruto turned around to see a large fireball coming at him, evidenced as his own clone working against him. Given the close range, he couldn't jump out of the way or use a kawarimi. He braced himself while covering his face with his hands. Shit. The fireball disappeared. Wah. Was his first intelligent response coming back to reality. He looked around to see Hinata with her hand on his shoulder back in the middle of the clearing. Naruto's heartbeat slowed down, coming down from his panic attack. What happened? He was still unsure of what had really come to pass. Why you were under AG Genjutsu, Hinata said, starting to blush for touching her crush. It was pathetic for her to get so easily flustered when interacting with him, but it was also endearing. Oh, he realized, before yelling out loud, damn. It was a double genjutsu. Hey Kurenai-sensei, you know that most chunin and some jonin still fall for a trick like that. I'm still a genin, you know. He shouted, looking around trying to get a response. He received none. He turned back to the girl. Hey Hinata, when did I start to act strange? I think it was when you started to talk to me after your clones L left. She stated. She felt a bit disappointed for not noticing and helping him out of the genjutsu sooner. She could only imagine what he had seen when he was trapped in it. Kurenai watched the boy's clones search for her. She hid among the foliage and saw them dart from tree to tree in an effort to find her, but she needn't worry about them locating her. She presently had a camouflage genjutsu over herself to blend in with the tree so even if they knew of her presence, they wouldn't find her. She had a little time to study the boy in the clearing with Hinata. She gritted her teeth. Why did the girl have to fall for him? Of all the boys in Konoha 4, she became infatuated with the pariah of Konoha, a Jinchuriki and a clan-less orphan to boot. Not exactly ideal for the girl who practically had a princess status in the village, clan-wise, at least. Then to add fuel to fire of her irk, the apology from the week before had started to feel off. She felt that the apology was half sincere but she didn't know where the lie was. The lie could be that Naruto was untruthful about the fox apologizing so he could get into her good graces, or that the fox didn't mean it, or... And the list went on. Because he wasn't entirely truthful, she had yet to trust him. But what if he were completely truthful? Would she have accepted the apology? A massive demon fox that raised the village that supposedly loved carnage and destruction apologized for a random ninja he killed. She couldn't really blame him. He probably felt he could only trust himself, given how he was treated and about the S-ranked secret he found out about. People like her, by her actions and theirs, gave him little reason to think otherwise. Shaking her head, she tried to bring herself back to earth, back into the fight. He was actually right in the sense of the genjutsu. A double-layered one was a bit steep against anyone, even if it were a duplex of the C-ranked Magen, Makai Kanran no Jutsu, demonic illusion, hell viewing technique. He was just a genin. Regardless, he was the promising, aspiring, dangerous genin who blew a training ground to hell. Kurenai-sensei. She broke out of her musings and saw that the boy was shouting something. I know where Shino and Hinata-chan are. She also says you're over there. The boy waved at the general tree line where she was. So I'm limiting the Daibakua. Instead of 4,000 clones, you're getting 200. Aren't you lucky? He shouted. He made a cross hand seal and created the specified 200 clones that leapt into the canopy where she was suspected to be. I'm counting to 10 for you to get out of there into the open where I can see you, or you're getting blown up for the second time. Yuhi snorted, the nerve of this kid. He wasn't breaking rules. He cut down his percentage by 95%. While a drastic reduction, he could be bluffing though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All the clones made the ram seal. 9. All the clones started to glow, and at that point, she didn't dare doubt the boy anymore. She quickly deactivated her camo genjutsu and jumped into the clearing, yelling that she wasn't going to hide anymore. 10. The boy didn't react in time and still gave the order. The clones exploded. Whoosh. What? Kurenai looked back to where the clones were, baffled to see not an explosion, but a gale of wind to blow out of the tree line. A false explosion. Wasn't a full bluff. The blonde spoke as if he read her mind. I half bluffed. I only used futon buncheons. Those are a bit harmless when used in a Daibakua. They exploded, no one got hurt, and you came out of hiding. Everyone wins. Well, except you. You're revealed and you've been had. String her up. String who up? She instantly felt ninja wire wrap itself around her, locking her limbs together. Hands then grabbed her feet from underground and pulled her down to her waist. Not again, she thought, exasperated. Go Hinata-chan. Naruto yelled to his teammate. The blue-haired girl ran forward at the bound jonin, Byakugan flaring. She quickly closed the distance and started to seal the woman's chakra points. However, after the third jab, the woman exploded into smoke, revealing that she was a shadow clone. Damn! Naruto cursed when he saw that he was, in actuality, the one who had been tricked. Hinata, do you see her? The girl gazed around. No. Wait, I see 3 of her. 3. The Uzumaki repeated. She must really be getting into the usage of clones like me. Hey Kurenai-sensei. Trying to take a page out of my book of tricks. I'm the only person in Konoha capable of a one-man army, you know. The only reply was Shino to come leaping out of his tree line, disheveled. It looked as if he was fighting one of the Kurenai's clones but had to flee. The Aburame got up and cradled his shoulder and elbow. It was obviously hurt, but he suffered it in silence as he made his way to his other teammates. Naruto observed him and created a cage buncheon who was given a telepathic order. The clone flashed through the hand seals for horse, bird, and dog before its hand lit up in an ethereal green which he laid on Shino's arm. After a minute of his ministrations, the clone stopped and dispersed itself. Shino stretched his arm and made a fist. There was no pain. I'm grateful, but I was not aware that you knew medical ninjutsu, Naruto-san. Shino thanked and questioned the whiskered boy. You're welcome. Naruto-kun, why didn't you do it yourself? Why create a clone? Hinata was confused as to the blonde's actions. The clone I just created specifically for that jutsu had significantly smaller reserves than I do. It's the only way to give him the necessary chakra control to perform the jutsu. It's just a hack, you know, Naruto answered. Maybe I could teach you the Shozen no Jutsu, Hinata. You could probably learn it. Naruto scratched his cheek, confused all of a sudden as he didn't know why he'd give her such an offer. Probably just an autopilot thing that shouldn't have been done. He was talking too much. She thanked him in her own quiet way, that was welcomed. So, teamwork, what do we do? Shino was about to answer when Kurenai appeared among them, palm thrusting Hinata in her chest away from her to the ground, punched Shino in the gut and smashed her fist into Naruto's jaw, dropping all 3 of them in a blinding move within the space of a single second. No planning. Everything has to be on the spur of the moment. She walked away from the genin a dozen yards away. Let's see if you can get the bells, she urged, tapping the bells to make them ring. Naruto glared at the woman and rubbed his pained jaw. It was already healing, but why the hell did she have to hit him in the face, he fumed. His forehead started to ache and his whole body began to burn. He gritted his teeth against the pain. So much so, when the others saw him, it was as if he had started to steam. Noticing the phenomenon, Hinata activated her dojutsu and saw his chakra fluctuating all over his body, particularly in the network in his head. Naruto-kun, are you alright? The boy grunted his unintelligible answer before he ran to the trees to hide, both in the action of retreating to hide the secrets of his evolving abilities and not wanting them to see him in pain, vulnerable, not after the bravado he'd been maintaining since breaking his amnesiac seal. He ran, limping the whole way, trying to keep his wits around him. His body soon stopped burning although the discomfort remained. Kurama, what's happening? I'm not sure. It must be another latent ability. I can sense more activity than what is usual in your nervous system, especially in your limbs. Check your forehead, the fox suggested. Naruto shakily undid the knot keeping his forehead protector tied to his head. He turned it over with unsteady hands and looked at his forehead's reflection. He saw an arrow passing through the first and second circle, pointing to the south. The kanji was, reflex. Reflex, huh? He didn't know what it meant, but he had some ideas. He created a clone and telepathically told it to replace him. He had imbued it with a quarter of his reserves in the hopes that it would not dispel in a few hits. The clone retreated back to the team while Naruto slumped at the base of a tree, determined to wait out his ordeal. Reflex, he said out loud, what next? He waited 15 minutes for the pain to finally pass before he got back up. His sore limbs reacted in pain when he stood. He groaned for the momentary discomfort to pass before he stretched. His joints popped with action. How am I, Kurama? You're fine. Everything seems fine from my perspective. But there has been a rather big change, don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing. What is it? It seems that your nerves are on a hair trigger. It's like they're now custom made to carry more information faster to your brain. You remember last week when you leaned back a bit too far in your chair and you overreacted really sudden because you subconsciously thought that your life was ending. Hilarious. Your point is what? That I'm gonna react like that to every small danger. No. You're gonna subconsciously react to danger, even if you're not consciously aware of the danger. The Kyuubi didn't speak anymore, letting his Jinchuriki to process the news. Nonetheless, it seemed that his theory was correct. Perhaps he would have faster reaction times to outside stimuli. Well, time to test it out. Naruto jumped back up to the tree branches and started tree hopping back to the clearing. This should make things more interesting. If it really was to have a faster reaction time, was it like the Sharingan? The Kyuubi caught the thought. No, the Sharingan increases time perception. So much so that you can see an attack coming, think about it, and prepare to negate it. I suspect that this may be a bit different, seeing as how you don't have that dojutsu. Sounds debatable. What's the idea then? If I just see or sense an attack coming, my body itself responds faster. Quite likely. But we should keep in mind that we're thinking of a literal body reflexive reaction. Kurama answered. Worst comes to worst, it could even be a bad thing if you overreact over every little thing. The boy finally arrived back again in the clearing to see everyone gone. He started to wonder where they were when some sort of sixth sense started to move his body involuntarily to catch a fist thrown to his upper back. The boy looked at the hand he had in his palm and trailed along it with his eyes to see Kurenai's eyes hinting surprise, laced with disbelief that Naruto had detected and caught her punch. The boy's eyes widened as he realized what he had done. He hadn't even sensed her presence, not by intent nor by sight. It was as if he just stopped a tangible ghost that suddenly came into existence. The woman got over her stupor first and kicked away Naruto's left leg at the shin with a thrusting kick. The boy started to stumble forward but he still held on to the woman's hand, trying to right himself. Yuhi sidestepped and savagely jerked the boy forward, releasing his grip. Naruto, seeing that he could no longer right himself properly, finished falling, pushed off his legs at the last second and rolled, drawing a kunai midway through and threw it at the woman but missed. She was no longer there. The boy did a rapid 360-degree turn and looked around fervently in an effort to find the woman. His sixth sense started to involuntarily move again, making the boy jump away from the spot where he was standing. A split second passed before he saw two hands thrust out of the ground. Apparently, his sensei was now a fan of his more favored and frequented techniques. If it worked, why knock it? The boy landed a dozen yards from where his sensei apparently was and leapt away again to a tree branch to collect his thoughts. The boy breathed deeply, coming down from his adrenaline rush from the encounter with his teacher. Shit, why is she going so hard on me? And how did I know she was going to harm me those 2 times? It's gotta be reflex. But how come it didn't intervene when she dragged me forward? Is the ability selective of when to intervene? There should have been a reaction to that. After all, I even saw her do it. Does it only apply to things I don't see coming? It was puzzling. The boy felt as if his body had temporarily decided to run on autopilot those 2 times. He didn't really sense what was going to happen. He just reacted to the situation, fully automatic. Like he could feel vibrations in the earth. Like he could feel the wind move due to the locomotion of other things. Like he could hear the faint heartbeat. Like he could smell her. Not really any of these things. His brain intercepted all the little, minute and subtle changes in the atmosphere and intercepted the threat to the body, sending reflexive information to all the nerves so that they reacted without him consciously thinking about it, like the involuntarily act of blinking when something was about to offend one's eyes. The boy grinned. This ability was going to be certainly useful. X=X=X. And when he seemed to have recovered from whatever had affected him, he had somehow been able to negate most of my surprise attacks. Some of them were slow at first, but when I started moving faster he couldn't keep up. Kurenai said. The boy has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. I admit that I went quite a bit harder against him, but in my defense, it's because he's fighting at a much higher level than others of his generation. Kurenai, the Hokage, regarded her by pointing his pipe as if he was giving a lecture. I am aware of your prejudice against what he contains, as well as your segregation of him against the rest of your team. This goes against your training exercise of trying to promote your spur of the moment teamwork. The team must spend time together so that they learn each other's strengths and weaknesses to work with each other well in the field. I've never felt the need to explicitly tell you, but now, I'm cautioning you not to allow your feelings towards him to affect your job. Kurenai straightened. She could tell what a scolding was when she heard one. Of course. Above all, this is going to be a serious black mark on your record if you don't release your bias against the boy. You could even be forced to quit being a jonin sensei. He himself has done nothing wrong, and even if he apologized, whether it was the boy or the Kyuubi, at least there was some repentance, or even an attempt at trying to bury the animosity you both have to one another. Desist, and continue to teach and to monitor. Am I clear? The Hokage leveled his eyes in an imposing stare at the woman, relinquishing no favor. Hi, Hokage-sama. In other adverse yet correlated matters, Naruto sent a clone to me while you were all training. It said that you were taking it a bit too easy on Hinata. Your fondness of the girl is as equally obvious as your disdain for Uzumaki. Care to explain your actions here? Kurenai stuttered a little. I have no recollection. Kurenai. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. I'm not your minder, and in addition, you're a jonin. You know how badly unprepared ninjas get torn down when they leave their villages on missions. Post this, Hiruzen only stared at the woman, and it was all that she could do, gaze back in a somewhat pensive and repentant manner, although it was moot if she was only sorry about the Hinata side of her situation or about how she was treating Naruto. Hiruzen waved her off, not wanting to look at the woman anymore and averting his head down to return to his paperwork. That will be all. You're dismissed. With a bit of a forlorn look on her face, Kurenai bowed her head once and left the room via the door. X=X=X. Naruto completed his finishing touches to the seal. Haha. Done. What do you think, KY? Seems as if it was done correctly. Good work. How are you going to test it? Simple. One of me. The boy quickly created a clone and slapped the gravity seal tag onto its bare chest. The paper disintegrated and the seal tattooed itself onto the clone. The boy recalled the notes he made on the seal's workings and slammed his palm onto the clone's chest, focused his chakra onto the seal and yelled. Ni. 2. The clone suddenly stooped a little before struggling to stand again. It was obvious that the seal worked. But at least this way he had someone he could talk to, that is, getting feedback from the poor son of a bitch to know what it felt like. Well, how is it? I feel like my body weight doubled. What do you think, genius? The clone said sarcastically. Just try walking. Naruto tried to ignore his doppelganger's complaint. The clone obliged him and tried to walk. He did so with some difficulty but got along fine. Feels like walking through molasses. But I'm fine. It just takes some getting used to. Can you take it off now? Naruto walked over to the clone and repeated his original procedure but yelled, "Ichi." The clone sighed in relief, and then decked Naruto in the jaw. Ow. What the hell? Ha. Take that. The clone then took a kunai out of its holster and stabbed itself in the eye, dispersing itself. What the fuck? The Kyuubi finished, completely stupefied. At first, he considered the idea of the clone being playful, but that method of disposing of itself was unnerving, to say the least, not to mention the fact that Naruto had a hard-wired penchant for lashing out in vengeance. He could only wonder about the first problem. Perhaps that was only a minute portion of the possibility that his container had garnered slight instability due to the seal. Maybe we missed the deadline by a day or so. I didn't really count the years to the day, and I myself had no intention of making him put up with the memories a day earlier than he had to, not because he was ready. He never would be, but we don't talk about those things anymore. The present is distracting enough as it is. Holy shit. What the hell is going on with my clone? Naruto was confounded. Was that just revenge for the seal? I know I can be vindictive, but that's just going too far. Damn. The boy set about drawing another gravity seal. Halfway through it, 12 more cage buncheons ran up to his location under the tree at Training Ground 3. They reached him and saluted, but it was far too sloppy for it to be serious. All the D ranks are done for the day, boss. They spoke in perfect unison. Naruto looked up. Much appreciated. Just put the earnings in here. He picked up a small bag next to him and held it out. The clones filed into a straight line and dropped the money into the bag one at a time. After they were done, he peered inside and did a mental count. Let's see, holy crap, that much. He jumped up. You guys did great. You can get a bowl of ramen each. The clones cheered. They didn't expect to be rewarded. They just expected to be dispersed and all that. Hold on. Naruto exclaimed before his clones got carried away. I need all of you to transform into different disguises and spread rumors about rats in a grocery store. His eyes gleamed. The store is called the Ryo Savor, owned by Yoshiro Suhin. He handed each of them some money. Then you can get ramen. Let's get it over with, fellas. The clones shinned away. Heh. I bet you thought I forgot, didn't you, Kurama? Me. I didn't even remember. Naruto leaned against the tree and slid back down into a comfortable slump. Alright. Good day so far, minus the punch in the face and suicidal clone. Everything else went alright, he mumbled. I finally understand the seal's mechanics. I'm a little richer, and from Yoshiro's perspective, the prick will probably lose business for a long time. Maybe. Still, all in all, good day. He started drawing the seal again. He carefully drew the symbols, infused chakra in all the right places, and made sure that all the correct outer kanji were in perfect order and synced. He observed the finished product with an air of finality before standing again. He bared his chest, hesitated for a single second, and then slammed it on his chest, focused his chakra into it and yelled. Knee. He instantly fell to one knee as he felt his weight double. Shit. He bellowed intelligibly due to his clenched teeth. He strained to stand upright again. He soon righted himself again and tried to walk. But it soon became clear that just lifting a leg and placing it before another was now a bit difficult. However, he soon became used to it and was soon walking normally. I got it. I can tell that this is going to make me stronger. I can tell also. All the muscles in your legs are clearly using more effort just to walk. Don't you realize that you're a bit breathless? Naruto stopped breathing for a minute. But he soon realized that his need for air was much quicker and urgent than what he was used to. You're right. Maybe I should practice with it for the rest of the time here. The boy continued to practice wearing the seal for the rest of the day, walking, then jogging, then running, sprinting. Before long, he was reduced to crawling on his hands and knees back to his original tree. He gathered his things back together and reduced the seal to 1 and then made his way home, collapsing on his bed and falling asleep as soon as he laid his head on his pillow. For the next month, this was how his timetable went, if for lack of details. He would wake up, have breakfast, train with his team, do a couple of D ranks with them, eat lunch, replace the hospital clone, replenish the library clones with chakra, send back a dozen clones to Iruka to do more D ranks while he trained with the seal, limp home and drop into his bed. Throughout the first week, he realized that he needed to have more diverse meals, seeing as how he now constantly missed his third one. He found that with his newfound earnings, he could afford to just eat breakfast at a cafe every day and have ramen for lunch with some ordinary dietary supplements. He made sure to have food from all the food groups, and with his supplements, he soon became much healthier, and with his now vigorous and training, he lost all traces of baby fat on his face and muscles soon developed in places he barely existed before. One such case were calves. They grew as lean and sinewy muscle without bulk weight and were as hard as mahogany. Soon, he could manage with the seal easily on twice the gravity. He soon rose to the third tier in the second week, still keeping up the habit of exhausting himself daily. He stopped removing the seal in the third week and kept it on. In the fourth week, he started doing chakra control exercise on water with the seal on. He kept half drowning in for 2 days. He soon conquered this. The now difficult exercise helped to increase his chakra control to help keep up with his growing chakra reserves. He started running gauntlets of obstacles in the destroyed training ground 4 with clones throwing jutsus left and right in an effort to stop him. There was no holds barred on these exercises, and the boy trained his newfound reflexes to hone his ever-growing skills. He knew that he was growing stronger every day. It wasn't the happiest time of his life. He was still training just so that he could one day kill Ito. And all it took was a couple of kenjutsu. Who would have thought it? The forbidden ways were the best. For him, anyway. X equals X equals. Alright, you may go in, Shino, Hinata, Naruto. Kurenai ordered. They all opened the door and stepped inside. The Hokage and Iruka were there, seated as usual behind and to the side of the desk. Good morning, Hokage-sama. Team 8 chorused. Good morning Kurenai, Naruto, Hinata, Shino. Back for another D rank. Hi, Hokage-sama. We would like one please. Yuhi answered. Iruka, if you may. Hiruzen looked to Iruka, who had already started to leaf through all the mission documents. In fact, he searched through it twice but couldn't seem to find any. Iruka-san. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. I can't seem to find any. The Chunin stuttered in bewilderment. Have you checked the backlog of D ranks? The Sandame asked with a grimace. Those missions were the worst. Low-paying, tedious, menial, humiliating, all the things that normal people usually steered clear of. They would dole these horrible missions as D rank to the unsuspecting genin, so much so that they were saved for last, or if a genin was desperate for cash, or for punishment. That went both ways. If someone needed to be disciplined by way of law, or if the person was a self-harm addict and wanted to do it to themselves, enough said. None, Hokage-sama. Wait a minute. Iruka suddenly recalled giving the last D rank to one of Naruto's clones. I remember. I gave out the very last one to Naruto yesterday. And it was the last of the clogged up Ds as well. It's surprising. I didn't even think it was possible, but we don't have a single D-ranked mission left. Naruto. Kurenai inquired. But it was I who took it from you yesterday. Iruka chuckled. Actually, he's been sending a dozen clones every day for the past month. This was always after he did them with his team and trained, was what he said to me. Is he allowed to use clones to do them, or assist himself in doing it? Yuhi knew her potential line for argument was weak. It had a lesser chance of Sasuke smiling, or Sakura becoming a brunette, or even Kakashi yelling, "Youth," with Guyan crying. There is no rule against clones being used or being sent to do them in the first place. They are, essentially Naruto. Even though one of them is more than enough, Iruka jested. Hey! Naruto replied in mock anger. He and Iruka have been improving their relations with each other over the month through his clones. He had buried his slight animosity with him due to the S-ranked secret. It wasn't Iruka's place to tell him, anyway, it was probably for the best. The aged Sarutobi chuckled. Even more so, to bar him from using clones on these missions would be to bar all clones on all missions. This would apply to everyone, so this would be a severe handicap, seeing as now that you are starting to using clones a bit more frequently as well, Kurenai. Alright. The red-eyed woman resigned her argument. I think it's time for us to do AC rank anyway. We had already accomplished our 25D ranked mission quota twice over to earn one. She gave Yumino a pointed look, and the man got the hint. Ah yes. Here's a relatively simple one. Iruka quickly searched through the mission stack and pulled one out. This C-rank mission requires you to go to Kimyo Town. There has been some suspicious behavior there. Nothing much. It specifies that it will be an investigation, and that's it. This was submitted from their mayor. About what? Naruto wanted to know what he was getting into. As I said, nothing much. Certain things in some places move somewhere else, and frequent vibrations felt from the ground, is what it says. I figured that you could take it since Hinata can look around with the Byakugan. Neji's already on another mission with Team Guy, so it stands to reason. Besides, Naruto, strange things are right up your alley anyway. Oi, I resent that comment. Naruto was indignant but soon lost all emotion from his face. Iruka figured that he was psyching himself for his first C-rank mission. About time for they had gotten a real mission, anyway. If Naruto had sent a dozen clones every day for the past 30 days and they worked in pairs to do each mission, they did 180. Iruka thought, looking up at the ceiling in a thinking position. He did 180 in the past month, notwithstanding the fact that this was basically solo. That's a lot of D ranks for anyone for 30 days, let alone a genin. None left, shouldn't the whole world be a better place or something? He mumbled. Kurenai made a mental note of the mission parameters. Very well, Hokage-sama. Team 8, let's go. They filed through the door, Naruto last. The team went outside the Hokage's tower and Kurenai instructed them to leave, pack and prepare themselves for 3 days, figuring that they would return in a couple of days anyway, given the fairly close distance between the village and the roadside town. The students were told to convene at the east gate of the village as they departed. She stood and watched them all as they left, Naruto in particular. Soon, she left and did the same. Naruto came out of his shunshin to find that everyone was there already. They all possessed backpacks except for their teacher, who used seals instead, something Naruto took notice of. Kurenai-sensei, are only jonin allowed to use storage seals for personal purposes? He asked. No. Everyone is permitted to, so long as they can show a legitimate certificate that indicates that they have the necessary skills to use seals. But it makes a slight hassle, having to unseal everything when leaving or entering the village because some people use them for smuggling large amounts of contraband. Had to go through it with the gate guards, and if you end up using storage seals, you will too. Quote, okay. It seems worth it. They started walking, leaving the village for the first time. It felt liberating for Naruto, like leaving prison after a long sentence. From his point of view, it was as if the village walls were penning him in, like a wild animal. Shino felt nothing, Hinata was a bit felt estranged while Kurenai felt same old, same old. So, Kimyo Town, is that right? Naruto pressed on with questions. Hi. She answered, trying to remain curt. What sort of economy do they have? I have never heard of them before. I have passed through 2 or 3 times in the past. It has nothing in particular that's outstanding about it. It almost entirely residential and completely ordinary, she explained. She never really expected to hear a question like that, seeing that her stay each time was very brief. She never even got to ask about it or what they do. But she was sure they really had nothing going on or she would have heard about it. In essence, she half lied, and by making assumptions. He was satisfied with her answer. Perhaps you could tell us how far it is. I would prefer to move a bit faster than just a walk. It's 15 miles away, as the crow flies. Shino, Hinata, do you two want to run too? Kurenai addressed the other members who had yet to say anything. It's not an emergency, but it would be more efficient if we did make haste, provided we do not overexert ourselves. The stoic Aburame heir said. Hi. I don't mind. Alright, let's go. Kurenai reaffirmed. They jumped up off the beaten path into the trees and started tree hopping, Kurenai in the lead, followed by Hinata who was sandwiched by the boys on either side. Naruto looked to his teammates and grinned at them. I guess I'm to thank for the C-rank mission now, doing all the D ranks. We probably would have been catching the cat again, or walking the Inuzuka dogs or something. That may be true, Naruto-san. Experience in the field is valuable, but it would be more prudent to hone our skills more first, using the D ranks as an excuse to stay home to continue training. And what of the other genin teams? They probably would have to take C ranks as well, or go back to training. Shino said. True. But those D ranks provided some training for me. Trying to catch Tora the cat taught me to have more stealth, cause it has a superb sense of smell. Walking the Ninken dogs taught me to assert dominance and have leadership skills. Painting the walls gave me patience to not rush every stroke. Cleaning the sewers, I really hated that one, but it taught me to suffer in silence in a harsh environment. Even if not I'm personally there, I get the memories of my clones so I learn their lessons. That and the fact that 3 clones have to catch Tora. One to be used as a distraction, another for intimidation, and another to sacrifice its face to the tiger's claws, he said with a chuckle. Naruto, why do you do that? Shino asked after pondering the boy's remark. Do what? Sometimes you act very maturely, other times you act as previously when we were in the academy. You seem to have very distinct mood and personality changes at times. Shino said. I noticed too. It's almost as if you're bipolar with your emotions or something. The fox stated. He had been thinking about it recently too. Only just realizing that his mouth had been running again, and he was volunteering information, Naruto was horrified at himself. I act serious when it's business but I'm laxer around friends, Naruto said in his defense. The reason why he stressed this was unclear, but a long time later when she thought about this, and that's